Welcome to The Explainer. So think about the team you work with every day. It's really easy to just view a team as a static group of people sitting in boxes on an organizational chart, right? But what if we looked at them differently? The truth is, teams are living dynamic entities on their very own hero's journey. Think about it like biology. Just as you or I move through these distinct phases of childhood, then adolescence, and finally adulthood, a team has to mature through its own evolutionary stages. So today, let's explore exactly how teams grow, stumble, and ultimately hit their stride. Okay, let's dive into this roadmap. First, we'll cover the birth of a team, then surviving the storm, hitting high gear, the punctuated equilibrium shift, and finally, thriving through team disruption. We're going to look at a 5-stage linear model first, and then, well, we'll mix it up with something a little more chaotic.
Section 1. The birth of a team, the call to adventure. Every great story starts with a call to adventure, and honestly, it usually kicks off with a pretty hesitant, questioning pace. Let's ground this whole theory in reality for a second. Picture this. You're in Durham, North Carolina, and your manager, Robert Henderson, is opening a brand new General Electric factory. The goal? Oh, just to manufacture the largest commercial jet engine in the absolute world. The kicker is that GE hadn't built an engine from the ground up in over 2 decades, and the development had already burned through $1.5 billion. That is massive, sweat-inducing financial pressure. Let's use this newly assembled high-stakes startup team as our guide to navigate the exact life cycle we're exploring today.
And this brilliantly illustrates the path they and really all teams have to take. This is organizational psychologist Bruce Tuckman's famous linear roadmap from way back in 1965. It lays out 5 distinct sequential stages that every single group has to navigate to reach full maturity: forming, storming, norming, performing, and adjourning. All right, let's start with stage 1, forming. This is that classic, kind of awkward, getting-to-know-you phase. Just like childhood, everyone is trying to figure out the rules of the game. People are being super polite, but there's this definite undercurrent of anxiety and guardedness. Imagine those GE engineers quietly sitting in a room asking themselves, is my design going to be accepted? What's my role actually going to be? And wait, who really has the power here?
So what does this actually look like in practice? Well, because of all that uncertainty, team members are polite and they absolutely avoid conflict. They're cautiously exploring group boundaries, figuring out if it's okay to interrupt during a meeting, or quietly testing to see who naturally steps up as a leader. Discussions tend to stay pretty abstract at this point. Take a second and think about your own team. Are you currently tiptoeing around these polite boundaries, just kind of waiting for the real work to begin?
Section 2. Surviving the storm, trials and tribulations. Because let's be real, eventually, the honeymoon always ends. We transition right into the friction of teamwork. Welcome to Stage 2, Storming. Here, group members finally shed those polite social facades. They become authentic, and man, they become argumentative. Think back to our GE team. This is the point where engineers might start passionately arguing over design specs, aggressively exploring their power, and staking out their territory. The critical, underlying question everyone is desperately trying to answer in their own heads is, can I truly be me, have power, and still be accepted by this group?
Now, there is a silver lining to all this. This chaotic phase releases a tremendous amount of buried creative energy. People are finally being honest. But this is heavily offset by a massive risk. This is the danger zone. Many teams tragically get stuck right here in the storm. They get trapped in endless cycles of defensive conflict and little cliques, and they never actually move forward to accomplish the goal.
So the crucial point is knowing how to escape it. The Organizational Behavior Toolbox provides some fantastic actionable survival tactics here. If your team is stuck, you literally have to actively normalize conflict. Let everyone know, hey, arguing is just a natural part of the process. Make sure everyone feels heard, support your more insecure team members, and above all, remain positive. Don't rush it. Working through this messy friction is completely necessary.
Section 3. Hitting high gear, mastery, and completion.
If you can actually weather that storm, you reach this beautiful point of mastery and stability. Welcome to Stage 3, Norming. I love to call this the "Pew, we survived" phase. The team's energy is running incredibly high now because they know they can handle the tough stuff together. Friendships form, the group becomes cohesive. For our GE team, they finally agree on ground rules, standard operating procedures, and shared design goals. The leader doesn't have to dictate every little thing anymore. They can comfortably step back and just be a facilitator.
Which effortlessly launches the group straight into Stage 4, Performing. This is the absolute peak. You now have a galvanized, highly interdependent group operating in high gear with a completely shared vision. Individuality is respected, and importantly, the team focuses not just on getting the work done, but on how they're actually doing it. They actively look to preempt conflict and optimize their communication. That GE engine project, it's a well-oiled machine at this point.
But, all things must pass. Tuckman later added Stage 5, Adjourning. In the business world, a lot of project teams are temporary, or massive restructurings happen. Dissolving a high-performing team is a tough emotional reality. It's bittersweet, very much like graduating from school and leaving your friends. It is deeply important during this stage to purposefully set aside time to debrief, acknowledge what was learned, and truly celebrate the victories you pulled off together.
Section 4, the punctuated equilibrium shift, the plot twist.
All right, let's break that comfortable illusion of smooth step-by-step progress, because real life in the modern workplace rarely follows a predictable path. Things move fast and they change instantly. Let's contrast Tuckman's predictable 5 steps with a fascinating theory by behavioral scientist Connie Gersick. Gersick found that the life of a group is actually much more dynamic, much more cyclical. In her model, a sudden disruption, like a market crash or a competitor launching a crazy new product, can easily take a team that is comfortably performing and throw them violently right back into the storming phase.
Now, what's really interesting about the punctuated equilibrium model is how it visualizes this. You'll see that groups experience these long, flat periods of systemic inertia and stability. They basically just get comfortable. But then, those flat periods are totally shattered by short, rapid, revolutionary bursts of change. Change isn't gradual here. It is explosive.
Section 5, Thriving Through Team Disruption. So, the big question is, how do we survive these explosions? How do we thrive through team disruption? Well, these radical spurts of change are almost always catalyzed by an external shock. It could be a new technology, a global event, maybe a new CEO stepping in. Take the music industry, for example. For decades, record labels enjoyed a highly profitable, super comfortable status quo, selling CDs at double the price of older LPs. That was their long period of systemic stability. Then, sudden disruption. Peer-to-peer file sharing like Napster emerged basically overnight. It completely shattered their equilibrium. The industry panicked, they stormed, they fought back with massive lawsuits, until a brand new equilibrium was forced onto them by platforms like Apple's iTunes. Technology literally changed the rules of the game in an instant.
Which brings us to the ultimate takeaway from this explainer. There's a brilliant quote to keep in mind. Disruption, conflict, and chaos are inevitable. These disruptions represent opportunities for innovation and creativity. Your team should absolutely never fear the storm or the sudden disruption. Why? Because it's precisely in those chaotic, messy moments of friction that systemic inertia is broken, forcing your team to learn, adapt, and create dramatically better, more innovative structures. So I'll leave you with this to diagnose your own reality. Take a hard look at your team today. Are you coasting in a comfortable period of stability right now, or are you teetering on the edge of a rapid, revolutionary change? And more importantly, when that disruption inevitably hits, how are you going to harness that chaos to drive your next big burst of innovation? Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time.